It was the summer of 2007, and I was in my early 20s, still figuring out life. My friends and I were avid hikers, always looking for new trails, new places to explore. One weekend, we decided to venture into the hills on the outskirts of town. These were areas we'd always heard about but never dared to explore. Locals had told stories about strange occurrences, but we brushed them off as just old legends. The weather was perfect that Saturday morning. Clear skies, crisp air, and the kind of golden light that makes everything look like it's straight out of a postcard. We packed our backpacks, grabbed some snacks, and set off. We didn't have a specific destination in mind, just a vague idea of heading up into the forested hills and seeing what we could find. We were about an hour into our hike when we stumbled upon something unexpected. It was an old house, tucked away behind a thick cluster of trees, barely visible from the trail. From the outside, it looked abandoned, windows boarded up, the paint peeling off the exterior, and the roof sagging in a way that made it seem like it had been neglected for decades. The strange thing was, there were no signs of human activity, no cars, no paths leading to it, nothing. It was like it had been forgotten by time itself. Being the curious and somewhat reckless group we were, we decided to investigate. We approached the house slowly, half expecting someone to come running out and telling us to leave, but no one appeared. The closer we got, the more eerie the house felt. There was a distinct smell in the air, mold, something decaying. It was suffocating in a way that made me uncomfortable. The front door was slightly ajar, so we pushed it open, the rusty hinges squealing in protest. The interior was dark, damp, and musty. The floorboards creaked with every step we took. Our flashlights barely pierced the gloom, but we could make out old furniture covered in dust, pictures on the walls that looked faded and forgotten, and what looked like piles of old newspapers and books stacked haphazardly in the corners. There was an unsettling silence, as though the house had been trapped in time, forgotten by the outside world. I was the first to explore the upstairs, despite the growing sense of unease creeping up my spine. The staircase groaned under our weight as we ascended, and the air grew heavier as we reached the top. The upstairs hall was narrow, with doors to various rooms on either side. I pushed open the first door I found, and that's when the air grew noticeably colder. Inside the room was a large, old-fashioned mirror, the kind you'd expect to see in a Victorian house, ornate, gold-trimmed, standing taller than me. It was the only thing in the room that seemed to be in pristine condition, despite the dust and decay everywhere else. I stepped closer, and the moment I did, I felt it. That sensation, like someone was watching me. My skin prickled, and I instinctively glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone standing there. But there was no one. The mirror seemed to pull me in, my reflection faint but visible in the dim light. I could see the outline of the room behind me, but something was off. The reflection in the mirror was wrong. It didn't look like the room I was standing in. The furniture was different. The walls were decorated in a way that didn't match what I was seeing with my own eyes. I took a step back, thinking my mind was playing tricks on me, but the reflection remained the same, untouched by the reality around me. That's when I saw it. In the reflection, there was a figure standing in the doorway behind me. I froze. The figure wasn't like a normal person. It was shrouded in darkness, its features obscured, but I could feel its presence, like something malevolent. It wasn't until I turned around that I realized no one was standing behind me. My heart raced. I turned back to the mirror, and the figure was still there, now closer. It was as if it had moved toward me while my back was turned. I couldn't look away, even though every instinct in me screamed to run. The figure was getting closer still, its features starting to distort in the glass. Its arms reached toward me, impossibly long, and I felt a coldness so intense it took my breath away. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, staring into the mirror as the figure's hand reached for me. And then, a knock, a loud knock from the other side of the door. I jumped, snapping out of my trance. The figure in the mirror vanished in an instant, like it was never there. My friends had caught up with me, and one of them called my name from the hallway, asking what I was doing. I rushed out of the room, feeling like I couldn't get away from that mirror fast enough. I didn't tell them what had happened. They wouldn't have believed me anyway. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, even as we left the house and made our way back down the hill. We didn't speak much on the way back to the trailhead. We were all uneasy, the events of the day hanging heavily between us. By the time we reached the bottom of the hill, the sun was starting to set. That night, when I went to bed, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that figure in the mirror. And every time I opened my eyes, I felt like something was just out of my reach, waiting for me. A week later, I started having vivid dreams about the house, the mirror, that figure. It kept calling to me, even in my sleep. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I told my friends about the dreams, but they laughed it off, saying it was just our imagination running wild from the creepy house. But I knew something had followed me back from that place. I could feel it, its cold presence lingering in the corners of my room, watching me. I never went back to those hills, but sometimes, when I pass by them, I feel like the house is still out there, waiting for me to return. And sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I swear I can hear that knock on the door, the one that woke me up from the mirror. I still don't know what it was, but whatever it was, it's not gone.